Ich freue mich sehr, dass wir hier jetzt gemeinsam in die geheime, aufregende Welt eines Celebrity-Stars, eines Stars auf Snapchat dann auch eintauchen werden. Aber vielleicht mal so eine ganz kurze Frage vorab, weil ich sehe hier so vom Publikum bestimmt sehr viele Snapchat-Profis, aber auch einige, denen es vielleicht so ging wie mir am Anfang. Was will mir diese App eigentlich sagen? Was ist die Faszination dahinter? Relativ schwierig. Wer von euch hat gesagt so, yeah, Snapchat, ich hab's verstanden, ich liebe diese App und nutze sie jeden Tag? Möchte ich einmal kurz aufzeigen. Wow, super. So. Wer war auch verzweifelt am Anfang und hat gesagt, was will die App von mir? Ich gehe zurück zu Twitter. Ah, sehr gut. Das ist, glaube ich, so Erfahrungen, die viele gemacht haben, und die App ist auf jeden Fall wahnsinnig faszinierend. Ich selbst bin in ein Bootcamp gegangen. Ich habe eine Woche nur Snapchat auf einer Reise benutzt, um zu verstehen, wie die App funktioniert. Keine andere App war erlaubt. Und ich habe nicht nur gelernt, wie die App funktioniert, sondern auch, was die Faszination dahinter ist. Und ich bin ein großer Fan davon, ehrlicherweise, wenn man so eine App benutzt, auch gerade als Medienmensch, wenn man sie versucht, mit dem eigenen Medium zu verbinden. Ich als Radiomacher muss sagen, es ist gar nicht so einfach. Und ich freue mich sehr, dass wir heute jemanden vorstellen können, der genau das zur Perfektion treibt. Ein Radiomacher vom Herzen, der Snapchat richtig in sich aufgesogen hat, auf der Plattform ein Star geworden ist und diese beiden Medien richtig zusammenbringt. Und wie er das macht, das wird er uns zeigen. It's a pleasure to have Mark Kaye here directly from Florida, and he will show us how his successful Snapchat story started and how he connects radio and Snapchat. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Mark. Welcome.
Thank you. I didn't understand a word of that, but it sounded really, really great. Auf Wiedersehen, Munich. I'm learning German. That's all I know. So I hope to God you people speak English, because otherwise this is going to be a really awkward hour. But this is Snapchat. This is the logo. And I think you asked how many people here are on Snapchat. Is that what you asked, or did you ask something more personal than that? Who is on Snapchat, once again, just so I know? This is great. This is great. You people are way ahead of the game. Snapchat is, well, I call it the bastard stepchild of social media, because it was an app that was invented for teenagers to send each other dirty photos without their parents knowing. But it is way more than that now. I mean, it's still mostly utilized for that, but it's got way more ramifications and uses, and especially in the media industry, and especially in radio. In fact, for several reasons, radio people, if you're a radio broadcaster, you have spent the last 20 to 30 years of your life preparing yourself to be famous on Snapchat, because the same skills it requires to be great on the radio, they absolutely, positively equate to Snapchat as well. And there's a couple things. First of all, with Snapchat, when you create a video snap, when you create a post, you only get 10 seconds. Now, I work in the music radio industry, where the intro to most musical songs is 10 seconds. And if I speak more than 10 seconds, I get yelled at by some executive down the hall. So for 30 years, I've been trying to be entertaining in 10 seconds or less. And it's great when you transform to Snapchat, because the average person can't be entertaining in a minute and a half, let alone just 10 seconds. So you're one step ahead of the game. Also, with Snapchat, these things just disappear when they're done. Much like radio. When you go on the radio and you say something, if somebody doesn't hear it the first time, it's gone. It's ephemeral, they say. So with Snapchat, we should dominate, because it's short, you must be entertaining and informative in a very brief amount of time, and it disappears when it's done. Well, sort of. We'll get into that. But as Daniel said so nicely, not only do I host a radio show in Florida, but I also am a Snapchat star, and I know that because they say that on the internet. Hold on one second. Is this? I'm a Snapchat star, but I suck at PowerPoint. I don't know. What do we do there? I broke it already, right? I think that's our, well, wait, hold on. It was working a minute ago. Oh, he's telling me not to push any buttons. I'll just say, all right. Oh, there we go. Anyway, so when I started getting into Snapchat, 1 minute. Yeah, I know. I'm not touching anything. It just looks like I'm going to get in trouble. I broke something in Germany. This is now the fourth country I've broken something in. Now it works? Yay, look at that. All right, so this is how I know I'm a Snapchat star, because Business Insider, do you guys know Business Insider? It's a big, yeah. They said I'm a Snapchat star. There's me, and there they are. This is an article that was written about 2.5 years ago, well, 2005, about a year and a half ago. And this was at the height of when my show was really taking off on Snapchat. And they called me and they said, can we interview you for Business Insider? You're a Snapchat star. And I said, great. So we spoke for about an hour. They asked me tons of questions. I gave them all the answers. If I didn't know the answer, I made up something that sounded really intelligent. And then right before the end of the interview, they said, oh, by the way, sir, how old are you? And I just turned 40. So I said, I just turned 40 years old. And then 3 days later, when the article came out, you'll see that they put that right in the headline. With all the other great information I told them, the best they could come up with for a headline is how a 40-year-old radio DJ became a Snapchat star. Which, you know, whatever, I don't care. It just seems like it was kind of a slap in the face. Anyway, this article went on and on. It's about 6 pages. It's so long that I didn't even read it, and it's about my favorite subject. But it really kind of propelled me to the top of the Snapchat stardom list. And that's when I started going out and speaking and working with a lot of companies and that sort of thing. A couple days later, MTV News also wrote a story about me. They didn't care how old I was, which I loved. And they just put up a picture of me with Charlie XCX. Does anyone know who Charlie XCX is? She said that, boom, clap, the sound of my heart. No, you don't have that yet? Well, you'll have it soon, and then you'll wish you didn't have it. All right, well, I wasn't always a Snapchat star. Let me tell you a little bit about my story and how I went from radio to social media stardom, and then, of course, more importantly, how you and the people that work for you can do the same, because it's very important and actually not as difficult as you might think. But I wasn't always a Snapchat star. I used to be just a radio host, and one of the big things that radio hosts are urged to do is be up on the latest technology. We're supposed to be cognizant. We're supposed to be cool. We're supposed to know what's hot before anyone else. And as you can tell by looking at me, I am the epitome of cool. But one of the you're not supposed to laugh at that. That wasn't a joke. One of the things that I heard about a couple of years ago was this cool new app called Snapchat that all the kids were downloading and using. All the teenagers in my audience, because I host a top 40 kind of contemporary radio morning show. Everyone was talking about Snapchat. So I downloaded it and I put it on my phone. I played around with it for like 5 or 10 minutes, and I was immediately confused. Had no idea what this thing was. I had no idea how to use it. I didn't get it. So I deleted it, and I didn't give it a second thought at all. I thought, this is not for me. Then, a couple months later, I read this article in Time magazine about viral Snapchat stars. And you'll see here it says these guys are earning $100,000 a week on Snapchat. And when I read this, I thought, it's time to download Snapchat again. So I downloaded Snapchat and I sat with it for an hour or so, and I thought, okay, I'm starting to get it. And I started taking pictures of myself and drawing on myself, because that's what you do when you download Snapchat. And I came up with these great works of art. That wasn't a joke. No, this is my first Snapchat. These are my first. I don't even know what's going on here. There was a story in the news about a dog who was elected mayor in Minnesota, which is a dumb thing, first of all. And I thought it would make a great Snapchat. So I took a picture of myself and I drew a dog, and that's supposed to be Minnesota, but it looks like the dog has a boot on his head. So that was horrible. This is test driving a new car, although my hand is bleeding through the steering wheel and you can't really tell, and there's blue squigglies. This is horrible. I kept doing it though, because you're supposed to keep going. Bad Boys 3 came out, which is a movie, so I thought I'll draw myself with a really large gun in my hand. This was Pharrell, you know Pharrell Williams? He wore this stupid hat at one of the award shows, so I drew the hat on my head. Then I don't even know what this is. This is either I'm Mr. Clean or I just escaped from a mental institution. I'm not sure which one. But about this time, I realized that I am a horrible artist. I'm really bad. And Snapchat doesn't make you a better artist just because you can draw on your photos. And these guys who are making $100,000 a week on Snapchat and have millions of followers, they're great artists. I'm a horrible artist, and I was lucky if I had 10 or 12 people looking at this. And the 10 or 12 people that did see these, I mean, you would never look at my stuff again if you saw this, right? You'd be like, I'm not following this crazy person. So what I did was that's when I decided there was something about Snapchat I learned that day, that you can't change yourself because of an app. You have to change the app because of you. And what that means basically is there's a lot of apps. There's a lot of social networks. There's a lot of things coming out like Facebook Live and Periscope. And every day there's some new app that's enticing that we all want to try out. And what happens is we all have a tendency to change ourselves because of the app. Snapchat allows you to draw on your own face. But if you're not good at drawing on your own face, you shouldn't draw on your own face. Stick to what you're good at. And what I was good at was radio. I was a radio talk show host. I was good at interviewing people, making funny jokes, entertaining people in that atmosphere. So I decided, screw drawing, I'm not going to do it anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to host a radio talk show on Snapchat. And that's what I did. And I called it Talkin' Snap with Mark Kaye. And that's when I really started to find my success on Snapchat. That's when I really started to succeed, because I was taking what I was naturally good at anyway, and I was using Snapchat as just a new forum to broadcast it. And I went out and I started finding big name social media stars from YouTube and from Vine and from Snapchat, and I started interviewing them. And you'll see, every week I would have a new episode. That's a Thanksgiving episode with a turkey. There's a Christmas episode where I'm Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There's a clown episode. I don't really know what's going on. I forget what that's all about. But I started interviewing Charlie XCX because I had some music connections for my radio career. Also, Jake Miller, who's a Florida artist. There we both are with our shirts off. He looks a little bit better with his shirt off, but whatever. This is Kevin Jonas. Do you guys know the Jonas Brothers? Do you know Kevin Jonas, Camp Rock, all that? No? Okay. Anyway, Kevin Jonas actually wrote to me after a few weeks of watching my Snapchat talk show and said, I would like to be on your Snapchat talk show. And he wrote to me on Snapchat, and of course I thought it was just some idiot playing tricks with me. So I wrote back, sure thing, ha ha. And then, of course, he sent me a picture of himself to prove that it was actually Kevin Jonas. He's big into technology now. He's left the band, of course. His brothers are still performing music, but he owns tech companies, and he had just started a brand new app called You'd, and he wanted me to interview him on my Snapchat talk show. And that was another pillar of success for me. Just so you kind of have an idea of how my Snapchat talk show works. Here's an episode that I did early on with a guy named Jake Paul, who is basically a professional idiot. This guy is a Vine star, but he's now become a star on Snapchat, and he just recently got his own TV show on the Disney Channel. This was about a year ago, and this was my interview with him. But if you're watching on Snapchat, this is what you would see.
Talking Snap with Mark Kaye. Yeah, yeah.
Snow. I like snow.
This is Jake Paul.
Jake Paul.
And here's Jake Paul, and here's Jake Paul, and here's Jake Paul riding on a scooter and taking off his shirt. And, well, I don't really know what he's doing here, but Jake Paul's super busy. So busy, in fact, that the only place I could peg him down was in the back of an SUV as he goes to the airport. But please welcome my good friend, Jake Paul. Yay!
What's up, Mark? Thank you so much for having me. We're going to kill it. Let's go.
What's up, buddy? Look, you are getting more and more popular every time you go somewhere. This happens. That must be a pretty cool feeling to have all those young, attractive female fans throw themselves at you like that. Is it? I imagine.
It's an amazing feeling to make a connection with them like that, because they know what I'm like on the internet, but I love seeing them in person, and they are me. I wouldn't be anywhere without them.
All right, so basically, there's 200 more seconds of that, but you don't want to sit through 200 more seconds. That's 100 seconds too long. By the way, I've found that on Snapchat, nobody wants to watch more than 100 seconds of anything. So if you're doing something on Snapchat, 100 seconds is a good place to stop. I know, it seems like an eternity, right? 100 seconds, but that's where we've come. So after a while, after I started doing all these Snapchat shows with Snapchat celebrities, I started to realize that there were a lot of things that Snapchat superstars were doing. And what's interesting is the more Snapchat celebrities I interviewed, the more they would share my Snapchat channel with their large audience, and that's how my audience kind of got to grow. And I'll share more on that in just a minute. But the three guys from the Time Magazine interview that were making $100,000 a week on Snapchat, I have interviewed all of them and become friends with them. Other artists, a guy named Michael Platko, a woman named Cyrene Q, who just yesterday was featured in Forbes magazine. They wrote a big article on her because now her Snapchat brings her $500,000 a year just by posting snaps on the app. And she travels all over the world and works with all of these great brands. And she's been able to quit her job at Verizon to do Snapchat full time. Well, these are all back a year and a half ago. We were just a bunch of idiots doing Snapchat stories, and we became friends, and we started hanging out at the same events, and we started working for the same clients. And eventually we started a secret Facebook group where we could all kind of hang out. And if one of us was getting cheated by one company, we would let everybody know so no one else would get cheated by that company. Or if somebody found some new trick, we would go in the secret Facebook group and we would share it so that everybody else could benefit from that trick. So we'd become really tight. And when I first started going around the country and now the world talking about Snapchat, I went to the group. I said, look, what would you say are the secrets to becoming a Snapchat superstar, building an audience, and really becoming successful on Snapchat? And they came up with some great ideas, which I just basically stole. So this is what they said about becoming a Snapchat superstar. 7 things right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Collaboration, consistency, creativity, conversation, cross-promotion, capture, and creep, which I will explain in just a minute. But basically, the first step is collaboration. And this is true really of any social media, but Snapchat more so than anything, because Snapchat, they make it so difficult to find and follow people. They don't have a follow button like Facebook does or Twitter. They don't really give you a URL that you can connect to any of your blog posts or your radio host page on your website. They don't make it easy. For whatever reason, they don't want you to mass follow people. So finding new and exciting Snapchatters to follow is very difficult. In fact, in the old days of Snapchat, you had to not only know the person's username, but you had to physically type it in with your fingers and then hit add, and it was very cumbersome. So if somebody found you on Snapchat and added you on Snapchat, they really, really wanted to add you on Snapchat. That's a good thing because you have somebody who's already a fan, someone who's taken a little bit of effort to follow you. On Twitter, on Instagram, I mean, how many of us just follow people we don't care about just because we can? You just tap that button. Not so with Snapchat. But as back to collaboration, the best way then to find new people to follow is by collaborating with people who have other followers. And if you think about my show, Talk and Snap, the whole thing is just a giant collaboration. When I interviewed, for example, Sean Duras, who's one of probably the biggest Snapchatter in the world. Sean Duras, I wrote to him, I called him up, said, let's collaborate. I interviewed him. I put him on my show. I published it on my Snapchat. At the time, I had maybe 500, 600 Snapchat followers. Sean Duras had about 250,000. Well, he went on his channel and said, guys, I'm on Mark Kaye's Snapchat show. Follow him. Here's his name. So all of a sudden, his 250,000 Snapchat followers are racing to my Snapchat channel to watch their friend Sean Duras on my show. That is a huge collaboration that paid off for me way better than it did for him. So I did it again with another Snapchatter. And I started with Vine stars and YouTubers. There's a guy named Curtis Lepore who's on Vine. Same thing happened. I interviewed him on Snapchat. He had about 1 million Snapchat followers. He told them all, go follow me. My phone was about to explode from the number of people that were adding me on Snapchat when I published that. It was like a Galaxy 7. That's how much my phone was about to explode. That was a cheap joke, but I've been wanting to work that in. So collaboration is the key. But you don't have to just collaborate with famous people. You can collaborate with non-famous people. And in fact, you get a lot more reaction when you collaborate with your listeners, for example, people that follow you on social media, average Joes. To put somebody who's not famous, who's just a fan of yours, really, a fan of your radio broadcast, to put them on your Snapchat channel makes their day. It makes their day. This is from Christmas. You guys know this song, The 12 Days of Christmas? Have you ever heard it on the first day? Yeah, okay, good. Like 5 people have heard that? Okay, good. So what I did was I did kind of a collaboration with just people that followed me on Snapchat. I asked them, I didn't give them any instructions. I went on Snapchat one day and I just said, hey, send me a video of you saying your favorite word. That's all I told them. Just one word, your favorite word. And in the course of 24 hours, I got about 3,000 people just sending me the most vile words you could ever think of. Like they were embarrassingly vile. But I also got some great regular words, and I decided to use them in a new rendition of the 12 Days of Christmas. And it went like this. Cue the music. On the 12th day of
Christmas,
my true love gave to me 12,
hardcore, bubbles,
11,
gnarly,
Nipples.
10,
filthy,
9,
booger,
bagel,
8,
sleepy, homies,
7,
ballsy, tighter,
6,
sweaty, wenches,
5,
amazeballs, pup,
sandwiches,
4,
Puffy.
prostitutes,
3,
snowman,
coyote blood,
and a
pinnacle,
in a
fat,
booty.
There you go. By the way, how scary is that guy yelling coyote blood? I had nightmares for like a week and a half over that. Coyote blood! Oh my God. But so I did that. There's maybe like 20 people, just 20 random people that are in that story. People that follow me on Snapchat. And they didn't know they were going to be in my story. I didn't tell them ahead of time. I just said, send me a word. And then I published this, and these people, 20 of them freaked out. They freaked out. It's so exciting. It's exciting for them. It's like when they call a radio station and they get on the air. What do? They text all their friends. Turn it on, man. I'm about to be on the radio. Well, the same thing happens with Snapchat. Only what they do is they tell all their friends to go and follow me so they can see them on my Snapchat story. And let's see, the average Snapchatter has about 100 to 200 followers. Let's say 100 to be conservative. So 20 people, 100 Snapchatters, that's 2,000 people. 2,000 people that are now going to follow me, Mark Kaye, just because I created that little piece of content with 20 random individuals. That's collaboration. And that's a great way. That's a great way for you to grow your following on Snapchat and on I use it on all my social media. Definitely, collaborate with anyone you can. It'll help you grow. All right. Second thing is consistency. A lot of people get confused with consistency. They think that I mean daily, and consistency doesn't mean daily. If you can do something daily, that's great. Most of us are way too lazy or busy, or both, to do something daily. So consistency could be weekly. It could be bi-weekly, it could be monthly. But your audience wants to see something from you on a regular basis. And if they know it's only once a week, guess what? They're going to be waiting for it. They're going to be waiting for it. YouTube stars, the big YouTube stars, they started by publishing once a week, every Wednesday at 8 p.m., every Tuesday at 7 p.m., every Saturday morning. And lo and behold, every Saturday morning, their fans were ready to watch what they wanted to see. And as a result, they got tons of views. And that's consistency. Once you stop being consistent, people will forget about you and they're going to wonder what happened to you. I think I went like 4 weeks without doing my talk show one day, and people flipped out and they stopped watching my show. Now, the reason I got less consistent with my show was because it was getting more and more difficult to get Snapchat stars to follow my deadline. When somebody Snapchats for a living, deadlines aren't really a big thing with them. So it was very difficult to peg them down and get their video reactions. But consistency is important. It's the same reason we have our radio shows at the same time every single day, so that people can count on us. They can become familiar and it can become habitual. Habits are very important. You want people in a habit of watching you on Snapchat. You want them to see your name and tap their thumb almost instinctively. And that's what being consistent and good gets you. So definitely come up with some consistent time frame. Creativity. Now, this is what we talked about a little bit. There's 5 things that they've incorporated with Snapchat. Photos, which we've seen. Video, which you've also seen. Text, you can type on your photos. Paint, I've already shown you horrible examples of how you can paint. And chat. Chat means you can go back and forth. In fact, that's what it was originally designed for. It's called Snapchat. The first aspect was it to be a one-way communication so that this gentleman and I could just send pictures back and forth. You look great, by the way. Yeah, there you go. But it grew and they added stories and it became more of a social medium where you could broadcast. But all of these factors are still in play. They've added a ton more since then. They've added filters for video. They've added geo filters, which we'll talk about a little bit. They've added emojis that kind of bounce around the screen. They call them 3D emojis. They're adding stuff every single day. Snapchat updates more than any app I've ever had on my phone. It's really annoying. but there's new stuff all the time. So the key is to use these parameters, use these tools in a way that will excite your audience. Number 4, conversation. This is really important, and this goes back to radio too. We know that on radio, one of the most exciting things about traditional radio, more so than television, more so than newspapers, or as we call them now, blogs, but more so than any other medium, you have the ability to converse with your audience and to interact. I mean, in the United States, we give out our telephone number. I assume you guys do as well, and we beg our audience to call. And who else? You can't just call the TV station and say, put me on TV right now. But with radio, you can do that. And people love it. And it's a great way to make a connection with your audience. Snapchat, again, is the same way. In fact, like I said before, it was the ability to chat. That's where we started. So I've actually kind of grouped Snapchatters into 2 different audiences. Snapcasters are the first audience, or the first group. Snapcasters are people who just make stuff on Snapchat and send it out. And there's a lot of them, a lot of famous people. DJ Khaled in the United States, the Kardashians, all of them. They just go on Snapchat, they create content, and they broadcast it. And they never look at any snaps from anyone else, and they don't interact with their audience. They don't even let you chat. Have you ever tried sending a message to the Kardashians? It doesn't go through. It basically says, you are way not important enough for us to talk to. And so you can't do that. It's a one-way conversation. And for a lot of people, that works great. But for most of us, it doesn't. So we have this other category of Snapchatters. And these are people that don't necessarily broadcast anything ever, but they just like to chat. They just like to send their friends messages. They like to send celebrities messages. They use it as a communication device. And that's great. Now, this middle section in the green is where I think we all should be. It's where I am. It's where all these famous Snapchatters are. And anyone who's in the media industry who wants to use Snapchat as a way to build their audience and build their brand and make $100,000 a week doing it needs to be in the green. And that's where you broadcast great entertaining content to your audience who's waiting for it, but you also interact with that audience. You chat with them. You say thank you. You say, I'm so glad you liked it. You put them in your broadcasts. When you're in the green, that's where you become a Snapchat superstar, because you've got to use every single aspect. I had a girl, one day, I was in my office and I just posted something on Snapchat, and I get a snap from this girl in Ireland, 14, 15 years old, and she says something like, Mark Kaye, I just wanted to say, I love watching you on Snapchat. So I hit reply, and I said, Irish girl, thank you. And basically that was it. And I hit send. And then I noticed she wrote me right back. So I hit the button and I'm watching it, and this Irish girl is bawling. She's crying. What tears? I'm so excited. You wrote me back. I can't believe it. Oh my God. And then my wife walks in the room because she hears some woman in my office crying. And she goes, what's going on? And I go, I made some Irish girl cry. And she goes, why? I go, I don't know. But she was just so excited because she saw me as a Snapchat. I was like, look, I'm a Snapchat celebrity. I'm making 14-year-old girls cry. And that's, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I made a connection with her for life. And just because I sent back a Snapchat saying thank you. And that's something that's very important that a lot of people forget. Broadcast your content, but also interact with your audience. Next is cross-promotion. Snapchat, like I said, is new. A lot of you don't even use it yet, but I'm sure you use one of these other things like Facebook or YouTube. I don't know why I should take Google Plus. Who uses Google Plus? Anybody? One guy. Yeah, I'm getting rid of that. Twitter and Instagram. So if you've got any of these other social media networks, you should definitely be cross-promoting your Snapchat. If you go to my Twitter or my Facebook page, you will see the banner across the top says, follow me on Snapchat with my Snapchat name. And I'm cross-promoting Snapchat because, again, there's no real great way to discover me on Snapchat. So ever since, and if you go to my website, markkaye.com, same thing right across the top, follow me on Snapchat. And by doing that, I every day consistently, whether I snap or not, get new followers because they're finding me on all these other networks. If I have a really great piece of content on Snapchat, I'll put it on YouTube. In fact, you can go to YouTube and find all of my old Talkin' Snap videos, which are right there. And that way people can kind of see what I do. It gives me great content for YouTube. And if any of you are YouTube partners, you know that you can earn money as well. Facebook, a great way to connect. Twitter, every time I have a celebrity, I tweet out, go watch this person on my Snapchat show. And it brings in more and more of an audience because it's all about building that audience. So cross-promoting your Snapchat is a must. Capturing. What they tell you is that what you post on Snapchat disappears. Does anyone believe that? Thank God. In fact, Snapchat nowadays realizes they're no longer the disappearing app. They allow you to save all your stories in something called memories. They allow you to download it. And you should be. You should be capturing everything you do. These are a lot of celebrities. There's Mike Platko doing a show for something called Pretty Little Liars. He's captured all of these and put them on his blog. And that way, when he works with new companies, new TV stations, he can show them what he's done. This is all the great stuff I've done. You should never lose your snaps, especially if they're good ones. It's a great way to bring in more audience. You can create a Pinterest board of all your snaps. You could post these on Instagram with the hashtag Snapchat and you're going to get so much more followers. It's amazing. And then creep. Basically what this means is to creep on other people's Snapchat accounts. Figure out who's doing Snapchat really well, go on their account and follow them. And do what they're doing and steal their... You know how many Snapchat talk shows there are now that I've started doing it? There's like 20 bajillion. Everyone is doing a Snapchat talk show. I did it first. People creeped on my account. They said, hey, this is a great idea. And they started doing it too. I mean, we've been doing it on radio for years. There's no original ideas on television. How many remakes of old TV shows do we see now? Hawaii Five-0, MacGyver. These are all shows from the 80s. So go find out what other people are doing. Find the people who are just killing it on Snapchat and borrow their tricks or just steal them. Either way, it's going to make you better at what you do. All right. Up until, I know we have a few more minutes. Up until this point, I've been talking about broadcasting content because we're all broadcasters and we love letting our audience know all the funny jokes and ideas and thoughts and theories that we have going on in our head. And that's great. We should. But there's another key to Snapchat, which I stumbled upon about a year and a half ago, which made me not just a better Snapchatter, but also a better radio broadcaster. And that is that Snapchat is an excellent tool for creating content for the radio, for TV. And not many people are doing this. But about 2 years ago, I got a new show. I have a daily talk show, which is an entertainment-based talk show, but I wanted to get into more news and political talk. So I went to my bosses and they gave me a show, the Mark Kaye Show. And they gave me 1 hour on Sunday nights. I don't know what it's like here in Germany, but not a lot of people listen to the radio for 1 hour on Sunday nights. Especially during football season, because Sunday is the day everyone's watching football. So I got a radio talk show for 1 hour on Sunday nights in Jacksonville, Florida. And I kept talking, which was great. And I kept asking people to call, which was nice. Nobody called. Nobody called because it was Sunday night and no one's listening to the radio. And so after a while, I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way to get people to call. There's got to be a way to get listeners to interact with me on the radio. All I need is audio of people that I can play. And then it dawned on me, I've got a pretty big audience on Snapchat, thousands and thousands of people, young people, and they can send me audio. They can send me video clips. And what comes along with a video clip? Audio. So what I did was about 2 hours before my show, I knew I had a question I was going to ask. And I went on Snapchat and I said, everybody, I'm about to go on the radio. I need your help. Send me your answer. Send me a video snap. Answer this question. And I gave out my question. And I had about 150 answers in about 2 hours. So what I did was I took the audio of some of the better ones and I put them on my radio show instead of phone calls. And it was fantastic. And there were several reasons for this. Number one, the audience was limited to 10 seconds. So I didn't have to worry about a phone caller babbling on and on and on about stuff nobody cares about. Hey, this is my first time listening, first time call. I'm like, I don't care. What's your point? They didn't even tell me their names. They just gave me 10 seconds of great audio. Number two, I knew what these people were going to say before they said it because it was pre-recorded, which means I could put them in an order that made sense. I could come up with great arguments for and or against, great rebuttals for their comments. It was fantastic. And so I started incorporating Snapchat into my show. To give you an idea of what that sounds like, this is me, by the way, in the studio. This is my Snapchat. And what I've done is I've taken the snaps that I've gotten and I've put them alongside so you can kind of hear how it sounds on the radio and also see what's going on in Snapchat. This is about a year ago. I don't know if you guys know, we're having a big presidential election in the States. Did you guys heard anything about that? Okay. All right. Well, about a year ago, this was in the primaries. Donald Trump was not yet the candidate. Hillary Clinton was not yet the candidate. And there was a story out that young girls didn't really like Hillary Clinton. Well, I have a lot of young girls on my Snapchat, which sounds really creepier than it is. And so I thought I would ask them the question so I could talk about it on the radio. And here's kind of how it works.
Hillary Clinton.
The first big thing you need to know is that young girls hate Hillary Clinton. They are not supporting her. They are flocking from her in droves. First-time female voters in their teens. Second-time female voters in their 20s. In fact, female voters even in their 30s are not supporting Hillary Clinton. You know, I want to do a little bit of investigative journalism. I want to do, some digging deep on my own. So I went to the one place where I know there are a lot of young female voters, and that is Snapchat. When you really want to find out what young women want, you go to Snapchat. That sounded a lot creepier. That sounded a lot creepier than I meant it to. But here's what I did. I went on my Snapchat account and I said, look, if you're a young female voter, let me know, A, are you voting for Hillary Clinton? And B, why or why not? I got some answers you're not going to believe. They're going to make you gasp.
I personally will not be voting for Hillary because it's just my preference to have a man in power.
That's a young teenage voter saying, my preference is to have a man in power. Listen to this one.
I don't think a woman should be president. I think it's a man's job, and it should always be a man's job. Women should not have that kind of power.
Wait till the Hillary camp sees this, man. I hope Hillary Clinton doesn't follow me on Snapchat because she's going to have a conniption fit.
Hey, Mark, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders this election. Why should I be more inclined to vote for Hillary just because we're the same gender?
And that's a question that the Hillary Clinton campaign has never answered. They just assumed. Woman support. Here's another.
Just because having Hillary as president would make history doesn't mean she'd make a good president. She's under FBI investigation. She wants to raise taxes, and she's a liar.
These young women are a lot smarter than I think Hillary Clinton has given them credit for. They just kept coming, by the way, folks. Yeah, they just kept going on and on. I'm so glad, by the way, Angela Merkel wasn't here to see that. She left, right? She's gone? Okay, nobody tell her about that. But that was real teenage women in the United States. And I was able, as you could see, I was able to use their audio on my radio show. And it opened it up. So what happened shortly after I started using Snapchat was we have a station. My company owns a station in Orlando. And the program director called and said, hey, can we get your show in Orlando too? And I said, absolutely. The only problem was they needed me at 7 o'clock and they needed me for 2 hours. So I doubled the length of my show. After that, there was a station in Dayton, Ohio. They wanted to add me. Then in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So all of a sudden, because of Snapchat, I went from a 1 hour, 1 city show to a 2 hour, 4 city show. And before too long, a guy named Herman Cain, who also ran for president a few years back and has a major radio show in Atlanta, he said, can you fill in for me during Christmas break? So last year, I got to go fill in for Herman Cain on 160 radio stations and 6 million listeners. And in that time, I've become his permanent replacement. So whenever he goes to Vegas to gamble, I get to fill in on his show. And a big part of that is because of Snapchat. So I want you to realize that you have with Snapchat not just a great tool to broadcast your content, but also to create great content. You don't have to walk around with a recorder anymore. The people will send you their answers. You could sit right here, ask a question, and be accumulating great content that you can repurpose on your broadcasts. It's a really fantastic tool if you use it that way. Before we go, on-demand geofilters. Does anyone here know what a geofilter is? Great. 2 people. Oh, yeah, 3 people. Geofilters, it's one of my favorite Snapchat tools. I'm going to share with you a quick story. On-demand geofilters. Basically what happens is Snapchat gives you the ability to create a little graphic that people in a certain area that you designate can put on their photos. This is Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a really loud, famous, rich guy. And he does these shows all over the country. And here he is. He created one that says Jabbing for Knowledge and JFK. People do them for weddings and anniversaries. There's one, Go Bucks Go. That's for a big game. If someone were getting married, you could actually draw a little digital fence around the church. And when people are taking pictures of you, they can swipe and add a geofilter that says, congratulations, Mary and Jack, the bride and groom. They're really great tools for business. I actually created a whole video on how they only cost a penny, too, if you do it right. Anyway, this is one that I created. There's a show in the United States called Live with Kelly and Michael. Have you guys ever heard of it? It used to be Regis and Kelly, but Regis retired. It's a big morning TV show. And Michael Strahan was the co-host, and he decided to leave, and it was a big deal because he didn't tell anybody, and she got really mad. So I bought a geofilter. This is me, and it says, "Hey, Kelly, give me a shot, Live with Kelly and Mark Kaye." And I drew a little square around the ABC studios in New York City where they taped the show. So anybody, you can see this is right outside, anybody who went to the studio and took a Snapchat could use my geofilter and they could share it all around the world. And my goal was to get the producers and Kelly, who were there in the building, to see this geofilter. And people started using it. Here's a girl that went to the show. This is a picture of how it looks when you go on Snapchat. There's the green box. That's the ABC studio on West 66th Street. That's where Kelly does her show every day. It cost me, from 9 a.m. to noon, that's when their show was taping, this cost me $9. So $9 a day, I got to send a message to the producers of Kelly and Michael where they worked. And the audience would share this every single day. And I ran this for about 10 or 15 days. I mean, $8 a day, it was nothing. So I spent about, $100, $200, and I ran this geofilter. And it was so successful. It was so successful that the producers of Kelly and Michael called Snapchat and said, "Please stop letting this guy buy these geofilters around our studio." And I got banned from buying geofilters. But I knew it was really successful. I knew I'd really made it because a week later, they introduced their own geofilter, Live with Kelly and ... And when you go to Live with Kelly, you can take a picture of yourself and you can pretend to be Kelly's new co-host. So I marked that as a success in my book. And now on my resume, I put that I'm a social media advisor for Live with Kelly, because I feel that I am. Anyway, that's kind of my journey. That's what I do with Snapchat. This is how you can always get in touch with me. And I really appreciate you having me here in Munich. I've really enjoyed it. So, Farfennugen. Thank you.
Mark, great hacking story. I love it with the geofilter thing. That's good. Yeah. I know what to do with our competition. Yes, that's good. So, I think even we are run out of time, but we should take this opportunity. If you have some questions, I would be glad to pass the mic and to ask Mark some questions if there are some in the audience. So just scroll back the last minutes. What should Mark explain a bit deeper, or what are you curious about?
Oh, hi.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
How can you save the content of other people?
Great question. That's the one question that everyone always asks. There's a couple different ways to do it, depending on what kind of device you're using. If you have a computer, you can always watch their content, record it, edit it. That's a long form way to do it, but that's something that's very, if you have a QuickTime program, you can just record the screen of your phone. That's a long and cumbersome way to do it, but it's very possible. There's also something called jailbreaking your phone, which may or may not be illegal in Germany. I know it's not illegal in the United States, but I have no knowledge of any German laws, so I'm not going to tell you to do it. However, if you Google how to download from Snapchat, there'll be tons of different articles of different ways to do it. Hacking into your phone or downloading a program is the most common. Snapchat used to really frown on that. They've eased up a little bit. What I do also too is I'll just write to people and I'll say, "Hey, send me videos that then I can then edit and upload." So they'll text message me content and that sort of thing. But if you really want to do it, if you really want to get creative, then there are definitely different, technological ways that you can do it.
But avoid third-party applications?
I would avoid third-party applications because they will shut down your account. Having the software modified. Jailbreaking, but have you guys heard of jailbreaking, everyone? It's a horrible term because it makes you think you're doing something wrong. Jailbreaking. It's not. They should call it, awesoming or something, because it makes your phone more awesome in so many different ways. So I know if you're ever in the United States, it's not illegal. It voids your warranty, I think, is the only thing. So.
Okay, I think we can take one more question. Is there some question? Yes.
Oh, yeah, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to know what your goals are regarding Snapchat for the upcoming 5 years.
For the upcoming 5 years?
So your short-term goals.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the thing that I've really enjoyed is because I've grown my audience and because of this talk show format, I've been able to tap into revenue sources similar to radio. And one thing I didn't show you was I was hired by Cleveland.com, which is the big newspaper. They flew me up to the Republican National Convention and they paid me to take over their account. So on Thursday of the Republican National Convention, I took over their account the whole day. And I was in the media office and I was, sending all these great Snapchats from the floor of the convention and Donald Trump and balloons. And that was great because it was a great opportunity for me and I made some money. The other thing, not surprisingly, is that there's a lot of speaking opportunities. For example, you guys flew me all the way from the United States to come here and talk about Snapchat. And that is something that I'm seeing more and more of as Snapchat grows. There are more and more people looking for education. And so I've been more successful in the last year or so doing live events like this than I have getting sponsored stories. So I look to continue to do both.
What do you think about Instagram and its stone Instagram stories? Is it a threat to Snapchat?
It is. The thing about Instagram stories is they've stolen everything from Snapchat, and I don't think they even deny it. But because Instagram is way more popular and palatable and easier for example, my wife never went on Snapchat, has no idea what I do on Snapchat to this day. But she's been on Instagram her whole life almost, and she gets on there and she plays with these stories, and she comes to me and goes, "Look what I can do." And I go, "I've been doing this for 3 years. Those diamond earrings I bought you for anniversary, it's because I've been doing this for 3 years." And then she realized, wow, this is Snapchat. So in a way, it actually introduced a lot of people, because there's way more people on Instagram than Snapchat. It introduced a lot of people to the power of Snapchat. And I think they're going to slowly, make the switch. But they always say, with the best form of flattery is impersonation. So,
Mark Kaye, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys
great.
again.
Very good.
I really enjoyed it.